Huzzah, Wildflowers. Huzzah, huzzah.
Huzzah, look at you.
Welcome back.
You didn't say we're back. You just said huzzah.
I said huzzah.
Huzzah.
You did.
Do you remember when we said huzzah for the first time?
I
together?
remember when we were in Boston in the courthourse.
We had a great time.
We did. That was fun.
That was a good
You
trip.
were Sam Adams. I forgot the guy I was, but we
I
had to
don't
have an
remember who-
argument.
yeah, I don't know who I was, if
I don't
anybody.
remember.
I don't know.
Maybe in the audience or whatever.
Yeah, maybe. It was you. And
I had to say huzzah.
That's right.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah.
Well,
it was
anyway,
good.
I'm Judy.
I'm Carol.
And Peggy.
And we are
the
Wildflowers. Thank you for
Wildflowers.
joining us. A lot to get to today.
Say it
A
again.
lot to get to today.
We do,
Yeah,
absolutely.
What do we have
Well,
going
this is
on?
number 37.
Yes.
And what do we have? You know, it's funny because not that we're really ahead of the curve or whatever.
Or
but
pat ourselves on.
yeah.
We're current.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we're current, absolutely. One of our topics that you brought up, and I'm so
You
sorry.
have to silence your phone, Carol.
I know. I'm getting my son-in-law's texting me. Hi, Nat. Okay, they'll be here around 6. Anyway, so you talked about the Chat GP, whatever.
That was one of our earliest ones.
Yeah, and then
ChatGPT.
Yeah, and so AI is not the answer was in a Publishers Weekly, and this was because there is a big concern. It was on a couple of different Zoom conferences with the Women's Media Group, and this is becoming a concern.
Issue.
You know, and that's why the
You
one
heard
reason.
it here first.
Yes, well, maybe not first.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, I found that very interesting. I'm like, oh, we talked about it on the podcast, and then we also talked about, well, it was your topic again, Judy. It's Judy.
I am
Judy.
relevant. We were talking about jobs that I do, and I think I could bring some good jobs.
Yes, that's true. That's very true. Good topics. Well, you talked about going back to the office, and then the New York Times, I think it was that week after, was about office workers don't hate the office, they hate the commute. And that is your, you know, you covered that a lot too.
I think I kind of hate the office too.
Yeah.
I hate the commute even more.
Right.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then another article we talked about was climate change, and then one of the things is that the very first sentence in this is rice is in trouble as Earth heats up, threatening the food and livelihood of billions of people. And there's so much, you know, because, you know, even when I was, you know, younger or whatever, and I think, oh, we're going to be so poor, whatever, you know, when you think finances, well, there's always going to be rice. You know, we're not going to starve, but that's
And
not-
rice does literally feed most of the world.
Yeah,
They
Most of the
subsist
world.
on it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so we cover a lot of different and the reason I'm mentioning this is because when we first started the podcast, we created a list of topics. Like,
Yes.
we want to make sure we have enough topics. What
Yeah.
are we going to talk about?
I know.
I don't even think we've hit most of those topics.
We haven't.
Because
Yeah.
we're always
And-
changing.
Yeah.
We also made a basket of like questions. that
In
we
case
have-
we don't have something to talk about, I'm gonna pick one anyway.
You do?
Can I pick one?
I love it.
Yeah,
this
do
is
it.
called being spontaneous.
Yes.
Scary.
But wait. You have to answer it then. Whatever you pick,
Yes.
you have
It's
to
a dare. It's a dare.
Yep.
Do you remember your first kiss?
Oh, I like that one.
My first kiss was like when I was in 3rd grade.
Wow.
And it was my birthday, and there was a boy in class that I liked, and his name was Glenn Lupton, and he was very nice and very brainy and very polite boy, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I invited
remembers him quite
well, I think he was
Glenn.
just a nice kid,
Right.
and I invited him to my birthday party, which was small. Like we
Right.
were sitting in my living room at home. There was a couple of kids, probably my sister Nora and maybe a couple of kids, and he was one of them. And believe it or not, we played Spin the Bottle.
Oh my God!
And I spun the bottle, or he spun the bottle, and he had to kiss me. That was my first kiss.
It was on the cheek.
Oh, of course, on the
Yeah.
cheeks. We were in 3rd grade.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good
Oh,
one.
that was spontaneous.
I know. You would think that I cheated or something.
I know.
Very, very good. Well, yes, so I guess any other topics before we start with the
No,
wine?
I think we've got a lot to cover later on.
Okay.
So, you know, why don't we move
Yeah.
on to
All
wine?
right.
What do
Well,
you
it's
think?
my turn. And I love could you pass me the bottle, please, Miss Peggy? So it's Willy Willy.
Oh, I like that.
That's a Well, the bottle is pretty. The label.
Yep. So I'm not going to give the price point, but it's a Shiraz, as you can see. And this isn't giving any taste away. It was named after the swirling red dust storms that often occur in Riverina at the end of a long, dry summer.
Is that Australia?
Yes.
Oh,
An
okay.
Aboriginal legend tells the story of Brolga, Brolga, sorry if I'm
Okay.
butchering that, a graceful young dancing girl who was transformed into a beautiful bird by a spirit disguised as a Willy Willy storm.
Wow.
Okay, born from the same russet earth, this is a full-flavored, juicy Shiraz from our mate,
Love the
Bob
Shiraz.
Burton. So he started his career as an accountant, having never run a business himself, and he joined a winery. And he has never left. So I'm not going to say too much more about the wine, but let me
Okay.
pour.
Yay. I should have poured it while you were talking.
You
So this
should
is
have,
a
but you
Shiraz.
didn't. You didn't.
And where did you buy it? You don't have to tell us the price yet, but where did you buy it?
This was one of the ones from my
your
wine
National
order.
Geographic?
Yep, my wine order.
Okay.
And I had several that I could have chosen from, but I liked
But you
the
drank
name
them.
Willy. No,
Yeah, and it's got a nice little story to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
also.
love-
I love that.
Yes,
yeah, I like the little
story.
story. So I just brushed my teeth, so the wine's going to taste pretty crappy to me. Yeah, so I'm not going to tell you what flavors are
Okay.
in it. So
Okay, here
what
we
are
are.
we raising? Or don't forget, we're going to look
Memorial
for the
Day.
Memorial Day. Well, this is going to air after
Oh,
Memorial
all
Day.
right. We should have done it.
We should have done it
But
in the last
for
podcast.
our taping, we are before Memorial Day, so thank you for everybody
Yes,
who has
absolutely. See the legs? The legs.
helped our nation to
Yes,
where
absolutely. And
we are today.
we had a special guest on around Christmas time. It was Kathy, and Kathy's birthday is on June 10th. So happy birthday to Kathy.
Happy
You can
birthday,
win-
Kathy.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I still can get these legs like
Oh,
you
that
showed
was
me.
a nice sound.
Yeah.
yeah. Here we go.
Here. I have a question.
I hope I have an answer. I have to take a drink of water because
Are we supposed to do the legs before each
you don't
one?
have to.
Okay, because I like going to restaurant.
I think
wanna
a
go
lot of
from
times
them.
they'll pour down the side of the glass.
We really need a sommelier to come
Yeah.
here and tell
Yeah.
us. All right. So
I mean, even Natasha could tell us more than what, she's quite educated on it. I'm trying to see this is 14.5%.
oh, that's why I like it. All right. No.
All right, so
It's
what
good.
what taste are you tasting?
It's definitely a Shiraz.
Yeah. but what-
Definitely.
Can you taste anything of note?
I can't.
I can.
Okay, let's see.
Yes, sir.
We've loved his wines, the quality and the value for years, even more so since he went out on his own.
Pepper.
Boldly fruity and spiced, this red is smooth enough to drink as a glass on
Yes,
its own.
it's very
and it
smooth.
goes
It
down,
is smooth. Yeah.
It goes down a storm with sausage and mash. Okay,
I
so
don't know
the
about that.
spiced plum,
Okay.
black currant, and vanilla.
I'd say the black currant for sure. Yeah. I
So
don't know about the vanilla.
what do you think this costs? And I did look up the
I
price
do
point.
like it. I have to say this is a good one. I like this one. So if we're buying it at a store
I
or
like
a
this one.
restaurant,
It's less sweet. Yeah.
I would pay.
$12.99, I think.
No,
Could you put this over here?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
I paid $30.
30. She's going for high price.
I know. Yeah,
I would say it's like
No.
$12.99.
I make-
Peggy's
Yeah,
pretty much
really?
on the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a $12
Such a
bottle.
sucker.
Hey,
I-
listen, maybe we should sell her
I
a
always
couple
lose
of
the
bottles
game.
of wine.
We watch the Antiques
Let's get-
Roadshow. You ever watch like Antiques Roadshow? And
Yes.
my husband and
We'll
we
get
watch
$2
it. I'm always like, I'll pay
jump.
$10,000 for that, and then they're like, it's $200. I'm like, ah.
No, and that's a very good TV show. I do like the Road Show. All right, so how
I
many?
love it.
How many wildflowers?
I like this better than the other one that we drank. I have to say. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
give
this is less sweet.
I'm gonna give this 4.5.
Wow.
Yeah, I like it.
I would give this 3 because you know what?
She
It
didn't
tastes
pick
too
it.
thin. It tastes a little thin to me.
But see, this is Shiraz is supposed to be a bit thinner. Like the Cabernet tasted thin to me. When
Yeah,
it wasn't
thin for a
supposed to be.
Cabernet, yeah.
If
Well,
I'm
they said the taste is ripe black fruit flavors.
it's not
Rounded
fruity.
It's not fruity at all. I think
No.
that's what's missing. Because a lighter wine, I want it to be a little more fruity.
Rounded tannins and a hint of peppery spice.
See,
on
Oh,
a
so you
long
were right with the
slow-
pepper.
Yeah,
The pepper.
Yeah.
I usually can pick that up.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would give it a 4. At
Yeah, I
least.
like it a lot.
Yeah, I like it
I
better
would
than the
definitely
other.
drink this, and I will.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
one I hope they gave me another bottle in the box. I'll have to check. Willy Willy. Willy Willy.
I was
Sam the
thinking
Sham.
Willy Willy.
Yeah.
No, it's
No.
Willy.
That's why
Watch it now. Watch it now.
Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs. I just dated myself.
Well, also we've had 2 really good ones, so the pressure's on for me for next time.
That's
Yeah.
right. It's gonna be a white.
So the next two that we do, you're gonna do a wine,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do the subject, and then the next one I'll do the wine.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
discuss that.
I'm gonna
Okay.
bring a
Yeah,
white. I'm
but
doing
what-
whites.
what-
So anyway, I have the book
now.
this time, and I just finished this when I was on vacation. It's called Hamnet, and it's Maggie O'Farrell. And I had reviewed one of her other books called Instructions for a Heat Wave. And I just love her style of writing. It's just so easy to read her books.
Oh, I love that.
I just love it, but sometimes she gets a little detailed describing things, but she describes them so perfectly. So this book is heartbreaking. I highly, highly recommend it.
That's heartbreaking.
But it is a
That
heartbreaking
doesn't sound like
story.
good for vacation though.
Well, I started it before vacation, and when I went on vacation, I only had like a little bit left.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought
And
you-
I said
okay.
no, so I'm gonna bring it
Alright.
and finish it on vacation.
Yes.
And I really didn't do much reading in that 2 weeks because you're with other people
Yes,
and
right.
and I am very easily distracted. So like I'll hear a bird. What's that? Oh, get the binoculars! And or somebody says something and you get involved in the conversation. But this book is about. It takes place in the late 1500s, and it is Hamnet is a boy's name.
That's what I wanted to ask
Okay,
you what it was.
it's a boy's name. It's interchangeable with Hamlet. So this book centers around a time in Great Britain when the plague was around,
All right.
and people were dying from it.
Yeah.
And although his name is never mentioned in this book is about William Shakespeare's family.
Wow.
It is so good, and the main character in the book is not even Hamnet, but it revolves around Hamnet, who was William Shakespeare's son.
Ooh, in real
In
life.
real life, I
In
was-
real life. Yes, in real life.
Wow.
He had 3 children. He had his oldest was Suzanne, and then they had twins after that, and it was Judith and
Yeah.
Hamnet. And it's really about William Shakespeare's wife. The whole story kind of revolves around her. And her name, everybody says her name was Anne Hathaway, but on records from her father in the will, she is called Agnes. So that was probably really her given name was Agnes. So Maggie O'Farrell went with Agnes instead of Anne. There's scant information about the personal life of William Shakespeare that it's hard to find, and she did a lot of research and used a lot of different books that were biographies of him, and nobody's even quite sure what he looked like because he never had his portrait taken.
Shakespeare.
Yes.
And yet they
Yeah.
always have that one.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Well, because somebody, Ben Jonson, who was also a playwright or a
Yes.
poet,
Right.
he was friends with him, and he kind of described how he looked,
Okay.
so they used that
Okay.
image. So, but anyway, what happens in this? It goes back and forth between 2 time periods. So you hear the story of William Shakespeare when he was a youth living with his father, who was very cruel, and his father was a glove maker, and he got in trouble with the whole village. Everybody hated him. He used to
As
be very
opposed to a
prominent.
lovemaker.
Yes.
as opposed to a love maker. Because at first when you said
Oh.
it, I was like, oh, glove maker.
Yes. And
That's okay.
William Shakespeare, who they never mentioned his name at all.
Really?
His name is never mentioned in this
Wow.
book, his first name. She always says, my husband.
I like that, though.
Or if it's his voice, he just doesn't refer to
right,
himself. Yeah.
Right.
And he meets his wife, the woman who ends up being her wife, because he is forced to tutor somebody else's children because his father owes a debt to them. And he's educated and he's a Latin tutor. And he hates it. But then one day he sees the kids that he's tutoring, their sister, coming out of the woods with a falcon on her arm. So I have to tell you something, when I read this book, you were Agnes. I have to say, this is Judy. Judy would have
I
been
would've come out
Agnes
there,
because she was an herbalist.
Yeah.
You know, she was a healer.
Oh, that's
And she
so
was
nice.
always in the woods with no shoes on and her skirts
Yeah,
hiked
that's
up. And she trained a falcon. And her family's always trying to marry her off. And she said, I'm not marrying him.
Yeah, that's me.
So then she meets
Oh my God.
William Shakespeare. And then they do fall in love, and they're both very young. Like, he's 18 and she's a little younger, and they do get married because she's pregnant.
Okay.
And this is like this big thing of the families. But
Wow.
I'm losing my train of thought because now I'm skipping around. So you kind of hear their backstories too about her life. Her mother was like she was. She was like always in the woods collecting herbs, and her mother dies very young in childbirth. And so she has a younger brother, Bartholomew, and she has a mean stepmother then. But
That sounds really interesting.
the book is about grief. And that's what makes
really?
it. The whole story is about grief and how she and her husband deal with the death of one of their children.
Oh.
And it just is so heartbreaking. Because as parents, you can imagine
Oh,
what
yeah.
it's
Oh,
like.
yeah.
No, I don't
And-
even want to imagine.
And then you hear the story too of William Shakespeare and like how he started his theater troupe.
Oh.
And he actually got pretty wealthy for the time. He was wealthy doing it.
Was this based on a lot of things that are...
Yes, it is fictional because
Right.
there's a lot that isn't known.
Right.
So she had a lot of license,
Right.
especially around Agnes, because there's really very little known about her.
Very interesting.
But like she did research and picked up little things about William Shakespeare, and I said, when we go to England, I want to see how far Stratford is.
Well, I was
because I would
there.
like to see his
Oh, you were
grave.
there.
I was there in the 90s in Stratford-upon-Avon, and it's
Yeah.
absolutely, I've got gorgeous photos there. It's very
And there's that quote on his grave about not moving his bones. Oh, I have to
remember
find
that.
it. I should have written it down, but I've been very,
Now,
Distracted.
very
one
distracted.
thing, and did she? Was he always married to her, or did he? He left her. I think.
He didn't leave
or
her,
he had
but
an
he was
affair.
kind of a philanderer, I
Because
think.
I thought you said Judith. I thought his mistress was also named Judith.
Yeah, I don't know, because
Yeah.
she didn't get into it too much,
Okay.
but then I went on Wikipedia this morning.
Okay.
And it seems like he did have a child by another woman,
Okay,
and
yeah.
But after the death, the story really revolves about after their son dies, and how they're both grieving, and like he leaves, he goes back to London, and Agnes is like catatonic, like she's always looking for her son.
Yes.
Always constantly looking for him in anything.
Wow.
And like it was very difficult for her to continue with her life. But I wish I'm so stupid. I should have written down that quote because I'm pretty sure it's not in here. But on his grave there is this great quote about whoever moves his bones will be cursed.
Oh.
And
Wow.
but anyway, I want to see if we could go. Is it far from London?
Not that I recall. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was staying in London, again, this is in the 90s. We just took a bus tour, and it was like a few
Oh.
hours drive, not even. And we went, and then they brought us back. you
Yeah.
know. I
We'll
was in
have
my
to look
early
into
20s,
it. We'll
you
have to
know.
look into it.
But it was worth it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this, I really love her writing, and I'm going to read all of her other books.
That says a lot.
That's
And
a
she
deal, yeah.
and this story really does it. You ever loved anybody, you could connect with this
Yes,
book. You know, it doesn't have to be a child; it could be anyone
Right.
that you felt that love for in your life. And just a beautiful book. I give it 5.
Wow.
10 Wildflowers.
Oh,
I
that's
just
great. Well
really
done.
highly recommend this book. So.
Oh, that was a
Thank you.
wonderful review.
Man.
Hamnet. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because it did remind me of Hamlet, and I did not know his.
Well, it
son was
turns out that
Hamnet.
Hamnet and Hamlet is the same name. They're interchangeable as a name because I looked that up also.
So did he
So.
write Hamlet after his son died?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Very
so
interesting.
yeah, so they
Okay.
think that it really was about his son. And if you read the book, I don't know if this is based on fact or not, but it seems like, you know, like it might have been. I can't tell you. I don't want to tell you, you know, how it ends, but
No.
excellent book. I
Oh, that
really
sounds
highly
awesome.
recommend it.
Good job. I love your passion about these books
Yeah.
that you love. It's
Oh, yeah.
just you emote it. It's so awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, that's easy to do when you're reading something
Something
that
that's-
just touches you like that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
So did you finish it on the plane or when you're?
No, when I got there, I finished
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, awesome.
So Hamnet, Maggie O'Farrell. Thank you
you.
for writing it, Maggie.
Good. Awesome. Awesome.
Jinx.
Julia beer. That's what I used to say as a kid.
All right, so I think we're going to go into the topic, and I transitioned a lot with this topic, but I came up with the idea. I wanted to talk a little bit about the suffrage movement, women's suffrage movement, and kind of reflect where we were and kind of bring it full circle to what does it mean for it today, is it?
Right.
And it's something that I think is important to talk about, and I learned a lot. I'm not an expert, let me put that out there in any way, but I was reminded of the importance of this when I went up to visit my brother who lives in Rochester, and he took me and my kids, my husband, to the Susan B. Anthony Museum. And I did not know where she was from, but she, you know, while she was born in Massachusetts, she did move to Rochester. She was born in 1820. And she settled in Rochester in around 1845. And I remember watching, there was a special on TV about her life, and I saw it a few months ago that she had written about in her letters that Rochester was her favorite place, and she was very well traveled.
Yeah.
And she traveled. What I think is important to remember, she traveled alone a lot of the
Oh,
time.
really?
She
That was
never married.
unusual back
Yeah.
then as a woman.
She would travel because that's how important she felt her message was and the message of women's rights were. She also forged a very important connection with the abolitionist movement. One of the main abolitionists at the time was Frederick Douglass,
Right, okay.
who also was from Rochester. I went to his gravesite. I went to both his gravesite
Oh, man.
and Susan B. Anthony's gravesite as well. They're both from there, so I thought it was what a unique place this
Yeah.
Rochester is. I really got such a great respect for Rochester, not just because of that, but the history of a lot of different aspects of it. But yeah, they have these two great people that are central to a lot of important movements buried there. So it's a great, if you have a chance to go up to Rochester, I would definitely encourage it.
It seems so far away back in
Yes.
the 1800s. How did these people get to Rochester?
Yeah.
You know, it takes us, 8 hours or 9 hours to get there in these high-speed cars on driveways
Right.
with highways and...
And here they, you know, it's something that it's very important. But she was very outspoken, and this is because I want to just mention that is if something was important to her, she wrote about it, or she formed a petition about it, and she basically put her money where her mouth was. You know, University of Rochester, for example, was they claimed women. They couldn't admit a lot of women because they didn't have the money. She pledged her life insurance policy to
Wow.
them
Wow.
to pay My brother
Wow.
teaches there, and then I went to go do a tour of that university
Yeah.
to make the women do. So she followed through. She didn't
Yeah.
just talk. She didn't
Right,
preach.
right.
If she had it, she did it there, and that becomes important because something what you were talking about the last podcast with revisionist history. There is a lot of changing of facts, and today her name is being misused for causes that weren't what she stood for. And I'm just going to give an example. There is, and did I write it down here somewhere? I hope I did. There is a pro-abortion group, and I have it somewhere in my notes. And of course, I can't find it right now. And they have a lot of movement, and of course, I don't have it here somewhere. They are using her name as the Susan B. Anthony pro-life group.
Pro-life?
Pro-life.
Oh, God.
Oh, it's killing me. I thought I knew my. Oh, here it is. It's called Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, and it's started by a woman named Marjorie Dannon Felser, and if you go to their website, which I don't encourage you to do, I did it for you, unfortunately, so I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
They claim they named it after Susan B. Anthony, who fiercely opposed abortion. Like it's like I can't laugh hard enough, and she didn't take any official position, and that's important to know because if she had a fierce position on it,
She would have spoken out about it.
And then I looked into how could they even claim this, and they're pointing to the fact that the revolution. This is a T-shirt I got at the.
I know, it's so cool. I was looking
I got it
at
at
it.
the museum.
Yeah.
She published along with Elizabeth Cady Stanton a revolution. It's like a periodical, and it reminds me kind of what we're doing here, where the goal was to provide a forum for readers to exchange opinions on a variety of topics.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
They didn't just put things that they felt strongly about. They encouraged other people to give topics of the day and their opinion on it, and they would publish them. And there was an article written, and it was titled "Marriage Maternity," and it was signed just simply A. Now, when Susan B. Anthony published, she would sign her name, Susan B. Anthony, or she would go SBA. And there were about 8 articles that appeared under the name of A in her, and it was anonymous.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is what this group by Marjorie Dannon
they just tagged it to
are
her.
hinging upon that. Look, that was written by her.
Right, and she was a feminist.
Right, despite the fact that the leading historians of our time that have studied Susan B. Anthony could not disagree and have come out publicly that no, that was not written by her,
Right.
Yeah.
and nor would she have stood for this sort of position. But yet, it's an example of how ignorance can rule if you don't do your research. And so we have this pro-life group claiming even Susan B. Anthony would be opposed to abortion. And it kills me that people are like this. They're revising our history.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is important to know. So I just wanted to, I kind of got straight off. I was going to get to that later.
No,
but
that's really interesting and disturbing.
it is disturbing. But anyway, she obviously did not see us. She didn't live long enough to see us get the 19th Amendment passed, but she did so much work for us, and but she wasn't the only one. And
Did she die right before then?
She died. I have it here. Hold on a second. She died in 1906, and the
So it's quite a bit.
the 19th Amendment
Really,
wasn't passed until 1920.
Right.
Yeah.
So, this started because she was very angry and she never married, and she put it out there she wouldn't marry because during her time there was something called coverture, and coverture is a legal doctrine in which a woman is is deemed to be under the husband's legal protection and authority, and therefore any property held by a woman or any money earned or held by a woman
Belong to the
automatically
husband.
go back to the husband, and she felt that this was wrong.
It was the same with the daughter. A daughter never inherited a title or a property.
Right.
Only a son could.
And so, even though she wasn't at this is something I bought at the museum. This is the report of the Women's Rights Convention. It was held in Seneca Falls, New York, in 1848. She didn't go to this one, but she did go to subsequent one in 1852. But this is what the movement started at. And I just, Frederick Douglass was there. I want to say there were also men there. Elizabeth Cady Stanton was there. But this is what it is, and I hope this is going to be a little wordy, heavy, and okay.
Go for
The
it.
history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward women, having indirect object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. This is what they're fighting for. He has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable right to the elective franchise. He has compelled her to submit to laws in the formation of which she has no voice. He has withheld from her rights which are given to the most ignorant and degraded men, both natives and foreigners. Having deprived her of this first right of a citizen, the elective franchise, thereby leaving her without representation in the halls of legislation, he has oppressed her on all sides. He has made her, if married, in the eye of the law, civilly dead. He has taken from her all right and property, even to the wages she earns. He has made her morally an irresponsible being, as she can commit many crimes with impunity, provided they be done in the presence of her husband. He has so framed the laws of divorce as to what shall be proper causes of divorce, in case of separation, to whom the guardianship of the children shall be given, as to be wholly regardless of the happiness of women, the law in all cases going upon the false supposition of the supremacy of man, and giving all power into his hands. And after depriving her of all rights as a married woman, if single and the owner of property, he has taxed her to support a government which recognizes her only when her property can be made profitable to it. It goes on and on about, this is what was formed, and this is what they agreed, this would be their charter, so to speak, okay? And we do know, this was a long, hard fought place to get to. The 14th Amendment, unfortunately, did not protect people. While they didn't specifically exclude women, this was the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right. The
second section of that amendment said that no state shall abridge the right to vote of any man who has achieved the age of 21. So you could understand that, right? Where we are then. Okay, and that was in 1866, the 14th Amendment. 1869, the 15th Amendment was passed, which gives the right to vote to all people of all races, right? So,
men of all races?
yeah, this is what was argued. And so the women's suffrage movement has fought long and hard. They tried to go through the Supreme Court to say, hey, the 14th Amendment talks about citizens. 15th Amendment includes all races. We're citizens. We're of all races. We should be held to the standard. It did not. They lost at every step of the way.
Wow.
And I wanted to talk. I wanted to point out one important thing. We finally get there, but this was in 1919. It passed Congress and went into effect in 1920. But you know how laughable this is? The text of the 19th Amendment was put forth into Congress in 1878, and it was passed 41 years later, verbatim. They didn't even change a word, but it took 41 years to get this passed. And it was getting me so angry because I was thinking about it. It's like, I didn't know this, but before 1776, women in many of the colonies were able to vote.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
They were able to vote.
Yeah.
And so everyone nowadays will say, well, blame the people you elect. When America was formed, there wasn't the election per se, but men wrote this doctrine, and they purposely left out women. And it took until 1920 for us to get this back. And I think it's crazy for men to get so upset about this because they gave themselves the right.
Yeah.
And they gave themselves the ability to leave out races and sex. But then I'm so sick of the argument of hearing, well, you use your vote. It's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
This is when you start out with a bunch of lemons, and it takes you a couple hundred years to finally make a lemonade from it. It's really frustrating to me. But here we are, 1920, and now we are 100 years later. We're starting to roll back. But this is what a lot of cases, they tried to not get an amendment. They were trying to do it the way to get an interpretation of the Constitution, and a lot of cases went forth, but one to try to change it. But this is the mentality we were facing, and I wanted to talk to you about the case of Bradwell versus Illinois from 1873. Myra Bradwell petitioned for this. She was actually married to her husband was a lawyer, and she was married, which now makes her the property of her husband, and therefore she can't enter into legally binding contracts or stuff. But she had studied, passed all of the tests, and fulfilled all of the legal requirements necessary to become a lawyer in the state of Illinois. But she has to petition the court, and the courts in Illinois would not allow her to be recognized as a lawyer. Myra Bradwell.
Is there a show about her now? I was watching some show about somebody. I don't know if it was her.
We'll have to look that up.
But anyway, so the case made it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Now, this is one of her arguments from her attorney, that the question does not involve the right of a female to vote. It's a narrower matter, right? Can a female citizen duly qualified in respect of age, character, and learning claim under the 14th Amendment the privilege of earning a livelihood by practicing at the bar of a judicial court, right? Because they recognize that the profession of the law, like the clerical profession and that of medicine, is an avocation open to every citizen of the United States. And while the legislator may prescribe qualifications for entering upon this pursuit, they cannot, under the guise of fixing qualifications, exclude a class of citizens from admission to the bar. Okay, now that was her attorney's argument. Opposing counsel didn't even show up. Imagine having an argument from the state of Illinois in the Supreme Court. They were so confident that they were going to win. They didn't even bother sending an attorney there to argue. And
so frustrating.
that gamble paid off because she lost. She did not win. And they, the justice who affirmed it, there was another justice who concurred with the regular justice, but for a different matter. And this is the mentality that they were facing with. On the contrary, the civil law, as well as nature herself, has always recognized a wide difference in the respective spheres and destinies of man and women. Man is, or should be, women's protector and defender. He references divine ordinance, and the family instruction is repugnant to the idea of a woman adopting a district and independent career from that of her husband. I'm not going to read the whole thing, and one of this is the considerations is that a married woman is incapable, without her husband's consent, of making contracts. Right? It is true that many women are unmarried and not affected by any of the duty, complications, and incapacities arising out of the married state, but these are exceptions to the general rule. The paramount destiny and mission of women are to fulfill the noble and benign offices of wife and mother. Supreme Court. This is the law of the Creator, and the rules of civil society must be adapted. He tries to save himself at the end and say, basically, I concur with the movement of the women's movement, but it's not a fundamental right. And in my opinion, in view of the peculiar characteristics, destiny, and mission of women, it is within the province of the legislature to ordain what offices, positions, and callings shall be filled and discharged by men, and shall receive the benefit of those energies and responsibilities, and that decision and firmness which are presumed to predominate in the sterner sex.
So, and that the sense is where you said that is the law of the Creator, they mean God?
Yeah.
Whatever happens to separation of church and state?
Let's talk about that.
Really,
Actually,
even in the Constitution, even in our Pledge of Allegiance, everything, like God gets thrown into it.
God wasn't in it initially.
Well, I know in the Pledge of Allegiance it was just indivisible, and then
Right.
in the 40s, I think we threw in under God.
But we need this. I wanted to bring this full circle because everybody may think that they learn it from school. The women's suffrage movement is something that happens, and now we're here. You've got the right to vote, women.
But shut up and just,
But it's something that is ongoing. The way I look at it, and I'm very concerned about it, not only as a woman, not only as a mother of daughters, that it is still under assault in a very and what's happening now. And I mentioned this before, is we're attacking the low-hanging fruit. We're attacking the easy newsworthy stories that get the headlines, right? Ban book, let's ban a book, and go for you. Let's right to pray in school now. Let's grab this, and who can oppose that? And now abortion, and you keep grabbing the fruit that's low hanging. Soon, all you're left with is the fruit all the way at the top. And the rich will always be able to afford a ladder to get up there.
Right.
They'll always be able to afford an abortion to get the books that they want, the education that they need, but the masses cannot. And if you deprive them, and if you don't fight or get yourself annoyed and voice your opinion about what is happening here for these little, it's just a book. It's abortion. It's happening in the South. That's not here.
Yeah, it's your freedoms being eroded.
It's going to be all of us, and it's all of our daughters and granddaughters.
Everybody needs to read The Handmaid's Tale.
Well, let's look at this. And so the current threats that I see, at least, and you could weigh in here, that we're facing, and that I think would be part of a modern suffrage and our part of it. Obviously, abortion. I'm not going to do a whole thing, but I just wanted to point it out. Is currently, after Roe versus Wade was wrongfully decided to be removed from our precedent, 14 states did a complete full ban on abortion and growing.
And the other ones, the limits are ridiculous.
The limits are 6 weeks, and at least 4 more states.
Who the heck even knows that they're pregnant when they're 6 weeks?
And that's why they intentionally.
Exactly. You'll indulge me. I just want to call out these states, just so we know. Now, these ones that do the full ban: Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia.
Is that a surprise?
No, it's not a surprise. But I think people need to know this. And just not just have to be a headline story.
Right.
The other thing that I think is being under attack is our divorce laws. Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a movement out there.
Listen to this.
To get rid of no-fault divorces, which is something Susan B. Anthony was a proponent of making sure women had access to a safe and easy access to divorce, because you're stuck with these men, and if not, if you have to prove,
especially if they own all of your property,
that's money and that's time, and you're stuck with them, and they control everything. So currently there are 3 states that are putting this on the forefront of their legislature, and I'm talking about Texas and Louisiana and Nebraska. These state legislatures are looking to get rid of no-fault divorce in those states. So
and what is their reasoning behind that? What are their reasons?
Easy for women. Women are just casually getting divorced and leaving these poor men, with all of this stuff, and then they have to support them, and we should make them work for it.
Yeah.
No. Okay. So now the next issue.
Well, how about, doesn't it go the other way for men too? I mean, men get no-fault divorces. It works both ways.
Men get vasectomies and they don't get to create babies, but that's apparently okay. But
and they
women
usually
have to
aren't
carry
the responsible ones, for
not.
the caregiving.
What happened just yesterday, I think, or this week, was a rollback. This is child labor laws. There's a lot of states looking to lose
that. I have read about.
Yeah. Most recently,
these kids, a lot of the migrant workers are very young children.
Well, exactly, but they're trying to make it statewide, and this is in Iowa. Shame on you, Iowa. Republican Governor Kim Reynolds is just yesterday extended working hours to 6 hours per day for 14 and 15-year-old children. Now, 16 and 17-year-olds can work the same as adults in that state, but across the board, 16-year-olds can also serve alcohol in restaurants in Arkansas, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Missouri.
New Jersey?
Well, you got the Atlantic City down there, of course, and there's not enough help.
Wow.
Yeah.
And and that's regardless in the states that are extending the hours that the kids could work on a
Yeah.
school night?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen if you start, the kids now are going to be forced to work, but the parents need money because, they're everything else is being taken away, a lot of it. They're going to make their kids worth less education. They're going to go to school tired.
Right.
Yeah. Or just drop out of school.
And just drop out.
Yeah.
This is
Wow.
what's happening today. You got the book bans, which we talked about.
Right.
Again, because that's really evil, right? A book. In these states I just mentioned, those kids aren't even going to have time to read a book. So
Yeah.
that's like the biggest.
Yeah.
Okay, religion in public schools. This is, we talked about this. All right, so,
Which religion?
well, this is the thing. And with this recent Supreme Court panel, we've had some very interesting cases that are just showing the erosion of this and why this is important to the women's suffrage movement. I'm going to link it up to you. But one we all kind of probably heard about is Kennedy versus Brennan Stock, which affirmed the coach's right to offer a prayer in a football
Yeah.
game. Right?
Yeah.
This is how it started.
Yeah.
You want to pray so bad, and God forbid there's a football player. I know, a football player who didn't want to participate. What's he going to do? Stand outside of your circle and
Yeah.
be shunned by everybody? Come on, coach.
Yeah.
There's really
I
no
know.
place for that in a
No.
public
No.
school environment. You should know
And that
better.
guy got down like on his
Yeah,
knees and
and-
stuff. It was.
But whatever, the Supreme
yeah.
Court says whatever. But the one that bothers me the most deals with the case that happened in Maine, and it's Carson versus Macon. And this is why the suffrage movement, this is a connection. States can't prohibit states can't prohibit private schools from receiving public funds. So think about it.
Whoa.
Now, because of this Supreme Court, private schools, your Catholic schools, your Jewish schools, your crazy weirdo schools out there that teach you, whatever, that can now be entitled, we can fund them.
Yeah.
We can fund this doctrine, and we can use taxpayer money to teach kids whatever a religious school wants to. Like that there's no Big Bang Theory,
Right.
that
Yeah.
girls are meant to be wives and mothers only,
Yeah.
that that's their destiny, that they should be married once they start menstruating or what. Because a child's marriage is still realist here. I'm not talking about 17-year-olds.
Right.
A lot of states have child marriage on the books.
Yeah. Don't they have like 14-year-olds
And younger.
Yeah.
If there's
Yeah.
the consent of your wackadoodle parents that
Yeah.
will allow that, then yeah. But, so that bothered me the most. Out of all this crazy stuff, is that my money will now be able to fund
Right.
Yeah.
what want your kids to teach, that you should be letting your church teach them, that you
Right.
should be teaching them at
Or you
home.
should be paying like my parents paid
Yeah.
for all of us to go to Catholic
like
school.
my parents did
Yeah.
too, unfortunately. But that's what's happening here, and if you don't think this is connected to a women's suffrage movement,
Oh, absolutely.
or
it is.
problems, then
Yeah.
you really got to wake up and start
Yeah,
seeing what's
I
going
know.
on here, because
Because we're
they're
going
coming,
backward.
They're
We're going
coming for
backward.
our rights,
That's
and
right.
you see it happening with minorities, with the redistricting and the voting,
Yeah.
and
And
you're gonna see it
even with
happening.
the lack of public housing, when you see it when they're gentrifying
Yeah.
neighborhoods and the people that were living there are forced out because they can't afford to live there anymore.
On one level, I got something, but it's almost being highlighted more now. When Trump says that what he came to do, he succeeded in doing.
Yeah, divide the country.
Yeah, well, not only that, but get those three
Supreme
Supreme Court
Courts.
Yep,
justices
yep.
in. And that is probably one of the reasons why he still has so much support,
Yes,
because he had success with that.
right.
Well, the ironic part of that is that Donald Trump has no beliefs in anything. You think he
Exactly.
really cares?
No, he does
he
not.
just did that to get votes.
Exactly. It's his ego.
Yeah, like
It's
he
not-
doesn't care.
It's not the country, and it's become obvious that this is, we are going backwards, and it's horrifying, and people have to pay attention and do more than pay attention.
And it's when you have people
Particularly
with
women.
and I'm not anti-religion. I'm really not, and I'm not. But what I am against is when people use religion to stand on a moral high
Yes.
ground,
Yep.
and to dictate that
To
my
everybody else.
morals must
Right.
govern your morals.
Right.
That part, and you see that now going on with the transgender
Oh my gosh, yeah.
issues. I connect that to a suffrage too, because
Sure.
now they
Yeah.
go and say what bathroom you can use,
Yeah.
how you can dress. You know, you can't show up at the prom in this, or you.
Right.
Yeah.
This is moral. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
something, and if that child's parents are okay with their transgender child
Yeah.
going to dress to school, whatever, then you
It's
leave
not
it.
your
That is
business.
not your
Exactly.
business. That is
Yeah.
not your
Yeah.
business.
What are they-
And we don't need laws
Yeah.
to send that to say this the opposite. And I'm just so tired.
And
of
the
it.
sad thing about
Yeah.
like the whole bathroom use thing is that they're instilling fear in people and saying,
Yes.
"Oh,
Yes.
your child is going to be
Yeah.
in danger
Yeah.
if this trans
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
is using it." It's like they're not criminals, they're not pedophiles, they're not rapists.
But you used a key word, the fear factor.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
they do
instilled
that
the
with
fear.
the books too.
Yep,
You can't
exactly.
have kids read a book.
Your
like
kid's
this.
gonna turn gay if they read this
Or
book.
you know, have hate messages.
But
you know.
here's the joke. I don't know of any one book that they're trying to ban that you could bring into a school and it would kill a child.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
know.
that.
No.
But the gun
Yeah.
issue, which was
Yeah, that was and we did a very good podcast on that.
yes,
Yeah.
But that's my.
But
and I
now
could go
this
on
was
more.
all inspired when you went to visit.
Susan B. Anthony. I came actually back. I meant to mention I bought you each one of these sunflowers
Yes,
because
yes.
that's
Yeah.
the representation of Kansas. Kansas was the first state to ratify by state
Oh,
the
the
women's
night- yeah.
suffrage
Yeah, the
movement.
19th Amendment.
So they did that, and so you could buy these little sunflowers in
It's
there.
funny how that theme, a sunflower, because with the Wiesenthal book with the sunflower,
came out,
it
yeah.
became- But yeah, I always put the sunflowers on the bar now when I get ready for
I
the
know
Yeah.
it was, but yeah, I got that at the Susan B. Anthony Museum, which I thought was really eye-opening. She lived next. Her sister lived next door, and she had a house. You would love the house. It's like a Victorian kind of.
Oh,
It's just on a very humble-looking street, you know,
Yeah.
kind of narrow street. You just.
But I
pull up.
like the fact, like, I can only imagine though, like if you put your mind back to, she had to have been very strong-willed, because I'm sure she got a lot of criticism.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
sure she got.
Probably from her own family.
I mean, I had so
Sure.
much I could say too. I mean, well, she was raised a Quaker, but I mean, she
Oh.
was so forceful, like, and so passionate that in 1872, she put her money where her mouth is, and she cast a vote for Ulysses S. Grant in the presidential election, and she was arrested, and she was brought to trial
Oh my God.
for voting for
for
grants?
voting. Because women
Oh,
were
for voting, of
Yeah.
course.
she was like tired of waiting. Like times right now, she's tired of waiting. She's
Yeah.
gonna vote, and she did it. She was arrested. 15 other women are arrested illegally voting. Sojourner Truth is
Wow.
appears at
right.
a polling booth in Michigan demanding a ballot to vote, but she was turned away. So anyway, her case went to trial, Susan B. Anthony's, and she was fined $100.
Oh, that's a lot of
Right.
money then.
But she was never made to pay it. Do you know why? Because she refused to pay, and they never arrested her
Because
for
they were
not paying her.
probably afraid.
They didn't want to grant her the right to appeal. And if they arrested her, they'd have the right
It
to
would have been a
appeal
big
that,
court case,
and she
yep.
probably would have won.
Yeah.
And this is how they screw everybody
Yeah.
over. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know, and she was just such. Anyways, but that despite all of that, she was a badass. She showed up in Philadelphia, independent. I remember she's traveling alone,
Yeah.
Rochester down to
Yeah.
Philadelphia, 1876. And her and another woman named Matilda Jocelyn Gage disrupt the official centennial program. at Independence Hall by presenting a Declaration of Rights for Women to the Vice President.
Wow.
You know, like,
Wow.
it's
Wow.
good for her. Like,
Yeah.
again, I think I learned when I came to Susan B. Anthony in school, I think I learned, oh, she's on the Silver Dollar or
Yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah, well, you know, that she was a feminist. Well,
Yeah.
they didn't use the term feminist,
Right,
but,
right.
you know,
Yeah.
she secured, helped secure the women's right to vote. But
Yeah, no, I could
But
go
you're right, that was
on
pretty much
and
all.
on and on about the many stuff that she did and participated in because it was
Yeah.
important. And as, like I said, as a mom and a mom of daughters, I've always tried to bring my girls to every vote that I do since
Yeah.
they were little. And I
Right.
try not to miss anything from whether it be a school election vote
Right,
to
good for you.
a local election. And
well, they're important
they're-
too.
oh,
Who's
they
on your
are.
school board? You better be paying
Absolutely.
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this my town in West Islip, we just elected an 18-year-old kid to the school board.
Wow.
And I have no doubt because our school board sucks.
Yeah,
And,
most school
well,
boards
in my
do on
opinion,
Long Island,
I don't think that they are doing that great of a job. And I was very happy to vote for
Yeah.
a young comer on there because I think we need people that are more in touch and willing to take on new ideas,
Yeah.
modern ideas.
Right.
And I'm just not convinced the current board is like that. So,
Yeah.
but I think it's important for people to know that and to bring their
And
kids
can people
with them.
get this somewhere? This the Women's
Oh,
Rights Convention?
I got
I'm sure you
I'm
can
sure
get it
It's
online.
not long. You could probably look at the text online.
Yeah.
But I just thought it
Right.
was cool in the original
Yeah.
writing.
Let's-
Yeah,
and
everybody
it's all-
needs to read that so that we make sure that we don't go back to this.
Well, that's.
Don't think it
But
can
they're
happen.
trying.
Oh, it's happening.
Yeah.
And
It's
despite the
happening.
fact that we're now living in 2023, we're days away probably from reaching the debt ceiling.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have a terrible immigration
Yeah.
crisis going on, but we have people like DeSantis talking about books.
Yeah, books, banning books.
Going
and,
to war with Disney.
and you know,
Right, right.
like there's an agenda, the political agenda
Yeah.
for the Democrats is to,
Abortion.
you know, yeah, it's abortion and LGBT. They're trying
Yeah.
to set this agenda, like trying to,
It's low hanging fruit. So
Yeah,
if you can afford a
exactly.
ladder, stock up now because
Yeah.
you're going to need it to reach what's
Yeah.
left up there on that
Yeah.
tree
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
rights because that's what they're going after.
Well, for anything, I just hope that you felt like you got some highlights and to know more about Susan B. Anthony
check
and
it
that you are as angry as we are. Peggy's
Sorry.
leaving.
No.
Peggy's leaving.
hi, I'm leaving the country.
I'm going with
I'm
you.
going back to Grenada.
Really, I don't blame you. But yeah, but please, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to know, you know, and if you have any topics you want us to discuss,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we love
Suggestions.
suggestions.
yes, we love them. But
Absolutely.
thank you for watching, and thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
That was very
Oh, awesome.
interesting.
Thank you, guys. See you
and
next
Peggy,
time.
I can't wait to read. I don't know.
Oh, it's really so good.
Yeah.
You're gonna love it.
It sounds good.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.